The conference room smelled like my sister's perfume and betrayal. I stood in the heart of Hartman Design Studio, the architecture firm I had built from nothing over 7 years, and watched Lauren slide a stack of papers across the table toward me. Her manicure was perfect. Her smile was colder than the January air outside. Beside her, Derek Sullivan leaned against the window frame with his arms crossed, watching me the way a cat watches a mouse it has already caught. "Sign it, or we will make you lose everything," Lauren said. Her voice was steady, almost bored, as if she were asking me to pass the salt. I looked at the documents. Transfer of 51% ownership, release of claims to family assets, acknowledgement of shared inheritance rights. 7 years of my life reduced to signature lines on legal paper. I thought about fighting. I thought about screaming. I thought about calling security and having them both escorted out of my building. Instead, I picked up the pen. I signed every page without a word. I placed my office keys on the conference table, and I walked out of Hartman Design Studio without looking back. The next morning, their lawyer called Lauren screaming. I could hear Victor Reyes through the phone from across the room, his voice cracking with panic. "Do you have any idea what you just let her do to you?" But to understand why my sister's attorney lost his mind over a stack of paperwork, I need to take you back 5 years, to the day our mother's will was read, and I first realized that the person I had spent my whole life protecting had become someone I did not recognize. My name is Melissa Hartman. I am 34 years old, and I am the founder of Hartman Design Studio, one of the most respected boutique architecture firms in Denver, Colorado. I started this company 7 years ago with $12,000 in savings, a laptop that overheated if I used it for more than 3 hours, and a stubbornness that my mother used to call my greatest gift and my biggest flaw. When I opened those doors for the first time, I had 1 client, 0 employees, and a dream that most people told me was impractical. A woman starting an architecture firm alone in a male-dominated industry. A woman who had never run a business, never managed employees, never negotiated a commercial contract. Everyone said I would fail within a year. They were wrong. Now I employ 15 architects, designers, and support staff. We have completed over 40 commercial projects across Colorado. Our work has been featured in regional magazines and industry publications. I built this with my own hands, my own vision, my own sleepless nights and skipped vacations and relationships that withered because I was always at the office. I live alone in a loft apartment in lower downtown Denver, never married, no children. My mother used to joke that I was married to my blueprints, and she was not entirely wrong. I spent my 20s building a career while my friends were building families, and I made peace with that choice a long time ago. I grew up in a middle-class family where hard work was the only currency that mattered. My father was a construction foreman who taught me to read architectural plans before I could read chapter books. My mother was a high school art teacher who believed that creativity and discipline were not opposites but partners. They raised me to believe that effort was the only path to freedom, that nobody was going to hand me anything, and that the only person I could truly rely on was myself. They also raised me to believe in family, to protect the people I loved no matter what, to sacrifice for those who shared my blood even when they did not deserve it. That last lesson almost cost me everything. I thought I understood sacrifice. I thought I knew what it meant to give everything for something you believe in, but I had no idea that the person who would demand the most from me would not be a client, a competitor, or even myself. It would be my own sister. Lauren Hartman was born 4 years after me, and from the moment she arrived, she was the sun around which our family orbited. She was beautiful in a way that made people stop and stare, charming in a way that made strangers feel like old friends. She could sing, paint, tell a joke that would make our father laugh until he cried. Teachers adored her, boys chased her, doors opened wherever she walked. I was the responsible one. Lauren was the special one. I worked summers at a local diner to save money for college. Lauren got a car for her 16th birthday. I graduated with honors, worked 2 jobs, paid my own tuition. Lauren dropped out of college sophomore year because she wanted to find herself. I built a business from nothing. Lauren bounced between passion projects that never materialized into anything real. After dropping out, Lauren moved to Las Vegas for what she called a fresh start. She came back 2 years later with credit card debt that would have made our parents weep, and a gambling habit she dismissed as just entertainment. She started dating men who always had big plans but never had jobs. She borrowed money constantly, first hundreds, then thousands, then more. Our parents asked me to help. Just until Lauren gets back on her feet, they said. Our father passed away 8 years ago from a heart attack, and our mother became the primary caretaker of Lauren's chaos. When Mom got sick, I inherited the role. I used to think Lauren's problems were bad luck, wrong timing, difficult circumstances. It took me 5 years and $200,000 to realize the truth. Lauren's problems were not things that happened to her. They were choices she made, over and over, knowing I would always be there to clean up the mess. The first time I met Derek Sullivan, he shook my hand and said, "Lauren talks about you all the time. The big sister who built an empire. I admire that." His grip was firm, his smile was warm, and every instinct in my body screamed that this man was dangerous. I ignored those instincts. That was my first mistake. Lauren met Derek at a casino in Black Hawk, Colorado's gambling town, about 3 years ago. She was playing blackjack and losing badly. He bought her a drink and told her she was too beautiful to be losing money alone. Within a month, they were living together. Derek was 41 years old, silver-haired, well-dressed, and spoke like a man who had never doubted himself in his life. He called himself an entrepreneur and investor, though he could never quite explain what he actually did. He dropped names like confetti, mentioned deals that were always about to close, drove a leased BMW, and wore watches that looked expensive from a distance but felt cheap up close. I noticed the red flags immediately. The way he answered questions about his work with more questions about mine. The way his phone was always face down. The way he touched Lauren possessively whenever other men were around. The way he asked detailed questions about my business, my revenue, my clients, as if he were conducting due diligence on an acquisition target. When I expressed my concerns to Lauren, she accused me of being jealous. "You just cannot stand that I found someone who believes in me," she said. Derek positioned himself as Lauren's protector against her controlling family. Classic isolation tactic. I recognized it. I just could not stop it. There is a specific feeling you get when a predator is sizing you up. Your skin prickles, your stomach tightens, every cell in your body whispers run. I felt that feeling every time Derek was in the room, and I convinced myself I was being paranoid, overprotective big sister syndrome. I was wrong. My instincts were screaming the truth, and I covered my ears. 2 weeks before she died, my mother grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. We were in the hospice facility in Aurora where she spent her final months. She had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer a year earlier. The doctors gave her 6 to 8 months. She lasted 11. She always was stubborn. Her eyes were clearer than they had been in days. "The desk drawer," she whispered, "in my bedroom. There is a letter. Do not open it until you need to." I asked her what that meant. When would I need to? She closed her eyes and said, "You will know when." I never got the chance to ask her again. During those final weeks, my mother asked strange questions. How is the company structured? Who else has access to your accounts? Do you have everything in writing? I thought it was the medication making her paranoid. I did not realize she was trying to warn me. She was trying to build a fortress around everything I had built because she knew a siege was coming. Her last words to me were simple. Protect what matters. Not things. Truth. She squeezed my hand once, then let go. She died at 3 in the morning on a Tuesday in March. I was holding her hand. Lauren was not there. She said she would come in the morning. My mother left me 3 things that meant everything. Her grandmother's original watercolor paintings, created over 50 years of quiet artistry. Her grandfather's Patek Philippe watch, a family heirloom since 1942. and a handwritten letter I was told not to open until I needed to. I kept the watch in my bedroom safe, the paintings hung in my apartment, and the letter stayed in my nightstand, a reminder of a promise I did not yet understand. 1 week after the funeral, we gathered in the law office of Patterson and Associates to read my mother's will. The attorney, James Patterson, had known our family for years. He looked uncomfortable from the moment Lauren walked in with Derek at her side. Derek had no legal standing to be there, but Lauren threatened not to come if he could not. Patterson allowed it, though he noted his objection for the record. The will was straightforward at first. The family home, valued at approximately $800,000, would be held in trust. Savings and investments totaling about $200,000 would be divided equally. Personal property would be distributed according to an attached inventory. Then came the provision that changed everything. Patterson cleared his throat. "There is an additional clause regarding the distribution to Lauren Hartman," he said. "Lauren's share of all assets would be held in a trust managed by me. She could access funds for reasonable living expenses with my approval, but full distribution would only occur after 5 years, and only if Lauren could demonstrate financial stability and independence from third-party influence. If Lauren contested the will, her share would revert entirely to me." Silence. Complete silence for 10 seconds. Then Lauren exploded. "What the hell is this?" She turned to me, her face twisted with fury. "You did this. You manipulated her. She was dying. She was on drugs. She did not know what she was signing." I watched Derek place a hand on Lauren's arm. She immediately went quiet. He leaned over and whispered something in her ear. And I watched my sister's rage transform into something colder, something patient, something calculating. I saw the exact moment her strategy changed. The screaming stopped. Her shoulders relaxed. She looked at me with an expression I had only seen on predators in nature documentaries. Patient. Certain of the kill. Whatever Derek told her, it was not comfort. It was a battle plan. Lauren stood and gathered her purse. "I understand," she said, her voice now controlled, almost pleasant. "Mom was sick. She was confused. Melissa was here every day, filling her head with lies about me. This will not stand. I will contest it." At the door, she turned back. "You think you have won something, Melissa, but you forgot one thing. I am still her daughter, and daughters have rights." She walked out. Derek followed with a polite nod to the attorney, and I sat alone in that conference room, holding my mother's will, realizing that the woman who had just threatened me was no longer the sister I grew up with. After they left, Patterson told me something that haunted me for years. "Your mother was very specific about this arrangement," he said. "She came to me 8 months ago, before the diagnosis got bad. She was lucid. She was determined. She said, and I quote, 'Lauren is not capable of protecting herself from certain people. Melissa is the only one I trust.'" 1 week after the will reading, my phone rang at 2 in the morning. Lauren's voice was slurred but sharp. "I need $20,000, she said. "By Monday. It is an emergency." I was tired. I had heard this before. But something in her voice was different. Not desperate, calculating. I asked what it was for. She hesitated, then said, "Derek has an opportunity. A sure thing. But we need capital now." I told her I could not just hand over that kind of money without understanding why. Her voice turned cold. "Fine," she said. "Then I guess I will have to find another way to get what Mom owed me." She hung up before I could respond. I sat in the dark, my mother's letter still unopened in my nightstand, and I knew with the certainty that only comes at 2 in the morning that my sister had just declared war. I just did not know yet that she had already been planning her attack for months. That 2 in the morning phone call was not the first time Lauren had asked me for money. It was not even the 10th. But it was the moment I realized that saying yes had become a reflex, not a choice. To understand how I became my sister's personal bank account, I need to take you back 4 years, to the night everything started. 4 years before the signing, I was 29 years old, and finally breathing. Hartman Design Studio was 3 years old and had just turned its first real profit. I had landed my first major commercial contract, a boutique hotel renovation in Cherry Creek worth more than everything I had earned in the previous 2 years combined. Life was good, busy, exhausting in the best possible way. I was sitting at my kitchen table at 11:47 on a Tuesday night, reviewing blueprints and drinking cold coffee when my phone rang. Lauren's name lit up the screen. I almost did not answer. I had a presentation in the morning and needed sleep more than I needed another conversation about her latest drama. But she was my sister. So I picked up. Her voice was shaky. She had been crying. "Melissa, I messed up. I really messed up this time." I put down my pencil and gave her my full attention. What happened? The confession came out in fragments. She owed $18,000 in credit card debt. Her landlord was evicting her because she was 3 months behind on rent. She had lost her waitressing job because of what she called a disagreement with the manager. She had nowhere to go and no one else to call. I should have asked more questions. I should have demanded to see the credit card statements, the eviction notice, proof of anything she was telling me. I should have asked how a waitress accumulated $18,000 in debt in less than a year. Instead, I said the words that would cost me over $200,000 over the next 4 years. How much do you need? I agreed to pay off the credit card debt and cover 3 months of back rent. $22,000, almost my entire emergency fund. Lauren promised this was a wake-up call. She swore she would pay me back. She said she was going to get sober, though I had not known until that moment that she had a drinking problem. She was going to take online classes to finish her degree. She was going to get a real job and start saving money like a responsible adult. I made her sign a promissory note. She rolled her eyes but agreed. I set up a budget spreadsheet for her to follow. I offered to help her find a job through my professional network. I did everything a responsible older sister would do to help her sibling get back on her feet. Week 1, Lauren was grateful. She texted me daily with updates about job applications and apartment hunting. Week 2, the texts slowed down. Week 3, she missed our scheduled check-in call. Week 4, I discovered she had never enrolled in the online classes she promised to take. When I confronted her, she said she needed time to decompress before starting school. She had found a part-time job at a boutique, just temporary, while she figured things out. She was doing better. She just needed space. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her, because if Lauren was lying, it meant I had just spent $22,000 buying myself a temporary illusion of peace. And I was not ready to admit that my sister had learned how to use my love as a credit line. 3 months after the first rescue, Lauren called me with news. Her voice was different this time, excited, hopeful, almost giddy. "Melissa, I met someone. He is amazing. You have to meet him." I agreed to dinner, cautiously optimistic that maybe this was the change Lauren needed. A stable relationship, someone to ground her, someone to help her become the person I still believed she could be. The restaurant was upscale, a place in lower downtown that I had always wanted to try but could never justify the expense. Derek Sullivan had insisted on paying, Lauren told me as we waited for him to arrive. He wanted to make a good impression. He walked in wearing a charcoal suit with silver cufflinks, the kind of man who knew exactly how good he looked and expected everyone else to notice. 41 years old, salt and pepper hair, a tan that came from golf courses rather than outdoor labor. His handshake was firm. His eye contact was direct. His smile was practiced to perfection. "Lauren talks about you all the time," he said, settling into his chair like he owned the place. The big sister who built an empire from nothing. I have tremendous respect for entrepreneurs. It takes a certain kind of person to bet everything on themselves. I asked him what he did for a living. He said he was an entrepreneur and investor, specializing in emerging opportunities. I asked what kind of opportunities. He talked for 5 minutes without actually answering the question. He mentioned deals that were about to close, partners who were household names in certain circles, projects that would revolutionize industries I had never heard of. He ordered the most expensive wine on the menu without looking at the price. He asked detailed questions about my business. How many employees did I have? What was my annual revenue? Who were my major clients? I deflected most of his questions, but he kept circling back, always casual, always curious, always just a little too interested. I watched him touch Lauren throughout dinner, his hand on her back, his arm around her shoulder, his fingers brushing her wrist when she spoke. The touches were possessive, not affectionate. He was marking territory, not showing love. There is a specific feeling you get when a predator is sizing you up. Your skin prickles, your stomach tightens. Every cell in your body whispers, "Run." I felt that feeling the entire dinner, and I convinced myself I was being paranoid. Protective big sister syndrome, I told myself. Jealousy that Lauren found someone before I did. I was wrong. My instincts were screaming the truth, and I covered my ears. That night, I could not sleep. Something about Derek did not add up. The expensive clothes but vague income. The name-dropping but no verifiable connections. The questions about my business disguised as friendly interest. At 1 a.m, I opened my laptop and typed Derek Sullivan, Phoenix, Arizona into the search bar. The results made my stomach drop. The first article was from a local Phoenix news outlet, dated 3 years earlier. The headline read, "Scottsdale investor accused of fraud in real estate scheme." According to the story, Derek Sullivan, then 38, had allegedly collected over $400,000 from investors for a development project that never existed. The case was settled out of court with no admission of guilt. The second article was from the Arizona Republic, 18 months old. 3 more investors had come forward claiming Derek Sullivan misrepresented investment opportunities. Civil suits were pending. The third result was a small-town Texas newspaper from 6 years earlier. A marriage announcement. Derek Sullivan and Sarah Mitchell. I searched further and found divorce records. They separated after 2 years. Sarah Mitchell had filed for sole custody of their 2 children, citing financial instability and deception. My hands were shaking as I took screenshots of everything. I printed the articles and put them in a folder. I rehearsed what I would say to Lauren. I imagined her face when she realized she was dating a con artist. I was so certain that the truth would set her free. I had no idea that my sister already knew exactly who Derek Sullivan was, and she did not care. The next day, I invited Lauren to coffee. Just the 2 of us, no Derek. I brought the folder of printouts. She arrived late, glowing, talking about how wonderful Derek was, how he understood her in ways no one else ever had, how he believed in her potential. I slid the articles across the table. "Lauren, I need you to look at these." She glanced at the headlines, then pushed the papers back toward me. "I know." I stared at her. "You know? Derek told me everything." Those were misunderstandings. The investors were greedy. They wanted too much too fast. The first wife was crazy. She made up lies to get custody. He was targeted because he was successful. People were jealous. She looked at me with an expression I did not recognize. "You do not understand him like I do." "Lauren, this is a pattern. He has done this before." She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "You think everyone is out to get me. You have never trusted my judgment. I have spent $22,000 on your judgment in the last 3 months. Her eyes went cold. "That is what this is about? Money? You want to control me like Mom does? That is not fair." "No, what is not fair is having a sister who only helps me so she can hold it over my head." She grabbed her purse and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, contempt. "Derek was right about you. He said you would try to break us up. He said you could not handle me being happy." She walked out, and I sat alone with my coffee growing cold, realizing that I had just watched my sister choose a con man over her own family, and there was nothing I could do to stop her. Over the next 12 months, the pattern established itself. Lauren would cut contact for weeks after every disagreement. Then the calls would start again. Always about money. Derek's investment opportunity needed seed capital, $8,000. Lauren's car broke down and she needed repairs, $3,000. Derek's ex-wife was harassing them and they needed a lawyer, $5,000. The rent was late again, $2,000. Derek had a sure thing but needed cash immediately. $15,000. I kept saying yes. I told myself I was protecting Lauren, keeping her safe, maintaining a connection so I could be there when she finally woke up. But the truth was simpler and uglier. I was afraid. Afraid of losing my sister entirely. Afraid of what would happen if I said no. Afraid that cutting her off would mean admitting she was already gone. I started keeping a spreadsheet tracking every dollar I gave her. Month 1, $4,000. Month 3, $7,000. Month 6, $12,000. By the end of the first year, the total was $45,000. More than I had spent on my first car. More than I had saved for retirement. Money I could have used to grow my business, to hire help, to finally take a vacation. But I did not track the other costs. The sleepless nights, the anxiety every time my phone rang, the way I flinched when I saw Lauren's name on the caller ID, the growing resentment I could not admit to myself. I passed on a conference in New York because I could not afford it after Lauren's latest emergency. I delayed hiring a project manager because the money went to Derek's lawyer. I worked longer hours to compensate for the financial drain, burning out slowly while my sister spent my money on casino trips and designer clothes. I kept that spreadsheet hidden in a folder labeled Tax Documents because I was ashamed. Ashamed that I kept giving. Ashamed that I could not say no. Ashamed that every time I swore this was the last time, I would hear Lauren's voice break and my resolve would crumble. $45,000 in 1 year. That is how much it costs to learn that helping someone who does not want to change is not generosity. It is complicity. 1 year after the pattern began, my phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in a client meeting, reviewing plans for a retail renovation, when my mother's number appeared on the screen. She called twice in rapid succession. That was our emergency signal. I excused myself and answered in the hallway. Her voice was strange, too calm, too controlled. "Melissa, I am at St. Joseph's Hospital. I need you to come." I raced across town, my mind cycling through worst-case scenarios. A fall, a stroke, a car accident. When I arrived, I found her in a private room, still in her street clothes, not in a hospital gown. She was sitting up, holding a folder of test results. Her face was pale but composed. "Pancreatic cancer," she said before I could ask. "Stage 4. It has spread to the liver." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. I reached for the wall to steady myself. How long? 6 to 8 months. Maybe less. I moved toward her, wanting to hold her, wanting to cry, wanting to rewind the last 5 minutes and never answer that phone call. But she grabbed my hand before I could speak. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Her eyes were clear, urgent. "Melissa, promise me you will protect the company, everything you have built. Do not let Lauren—" She stopped. A coughing fit overtook her. Nurses rushed in with water, with medication, with the efficient movements of people who see death approaching every day. By the time she could speak again, her energy was gone. Her eyes were closing. "We will talk later," she murmured. "There is time." There was not enough time. My mother never finished that sentence, and I spent the next 3 years trying to understand what she was trying to warn me about, until the day I finally opened her letter, and every piece of the puzzle fell into place. My mother lived 11 months after that diagnosis. The doctors gave her 6 to 8. She always was stubborn. But those 11 months changed everything, not because of what she said, but because of what she tried to tell me and never could. The hospice facility in Aurora became my second home. I visited every day after work, sometimes staying until midnight, sometimes falling asleep in the chair beside her bed. I would read to her from the mystery novels she loved. I would hold her hand and talk about my projects at work. I would pretend that each visit was not 1 day closer to the last. During those final weeks, my mother asked strange questions. Questions that seemed out of character for a woman who had never shown much interest in business or finance. "How is the company structured, Melissa? Who else has access to the accounts? Do you have everything in writing? Are there partners who could make decisions without you?" I thought the medication was making her paranoid. I answered patiently, explaining that Hartman Design Studio was solely mine, that I had complete control, that everything was documented properly. She would nod, but I could see the worry behind her eyes. She was thinking about something she could not bring herself to say. Lauren visited twice a month. She would breeze in for 30 minutes, talk about herself, complain about her problems, ask questions about the house and the money. "When will you sell the house, Mom? What happens to your savings when you are gone? Do you have a will?" Every time Lauren asked about finances, something closed behind my mother's eyes. A door shutting, a wall going up. 2 weeks before she died, my mother grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. I was sitting beside her bed, reading aloud from an Agatha Christie novel, when her hand shot out and gripped me so hard I gasped. Her eyes were clearer than they had been in days, lucid, urgent, afraid. "The desk drawer," she whispered. "In my bedroom. There is a letter. Do not open it until you need to." I asked when that would be. How would I know when I needed it? "You will know," she said. "When everything seems lost, you will know." I wanted to ask more. I wanted to understand what she was trying to tell me, but a coughing fit overtook her, and by the time the nurses finished adjusting her medication, she was asleep. I never got the chance to ask her again. She died at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday in March. I was holding her hand. The hospice nurse, a kind woman named Maria who had cared for my mother with genuine compassion, stood quietly in the corner. The room was peaceful. The machines had been silenced. Outside the window, the first light of dawn was beginning to color the mountains pink and gold. Her last words to me had been simple. "Protect what matters, not things, truth." I called Lauren at 3:20. She did not answer. I left a voicemail. "Mom is gone. Please come." She called back at 7. "I was asleep," she said. Derek and I had a late night. I handled the funeral arrangements alone. The venue, the flowers, the obituary, the casket. Lauren showed up to the planning meeting with opinions but no money. She wanted the most expensive casket, the largest flower arrangements, the most elaborate service. When I mentioned the cost, she looked at me like I had insulted her. "Mom would have wanted the best. You can afford it." The service was small. My mother's colleagues from the high school where she had taught art for 30 years. Neighbors, old friends, a few relatives from out of state who barely remembered her. Derek attended in a black suit that looked brand new, the tags probably still in his pocket. He shook hands, accepted condolences, played the role of devoted son-in-law with practiced ease. Lauren cried dramatically during the service. She accepted sympathy as if she had been the primary mourner, as if she had not spent her mother's final months chasing casino jackpots with her con artist boyfriend. I stood in the corner, numb, watching my sister perform grief for an audience while I held mine inside where no one could see it. At the reception, Derek approached me with a plate of food I had not asked for. His smile was warm, his voice was soft, his eyes were calculating. "Melissa, I know this is difficult, but Lauren and I have been talking. We should probably discuss the estate sooner rather than later, for closure." My mother's body was not yet in the ground, and he was already calculating his share. 1 week after the funeral, we gathered in the law office of Patterson and Associates to read my mother's will. James Patterson had been our family attorney for 15 years. He had helped my parents buy their house, had drafted their wills when I was still in college, had watched Lauren and me grow from children to women. He looked uncomfortable from the moment we walked in. Lauren had insisted that Derek attend. She threatened not to come without him. Patterson allowed it, but noted for the record that Derek Sullivan had no legal standing in estate matters. The conference room felt too small with the 4 of us inside. Patterson sat at the head of the table, a thick folder in front of him. Lauren and Derek sat on one side. I sat alone on the other. The empty chair at the end seemed to hold my mother's ghost. Patterson cleared his throat and began reading. Eleanor Hartman's estate consisted of the family home, valued at approximately $800,000, savings and investments totaling approximately $200,000, personal property including furniture, artwork, jewelry, and family heirlooms, and a life insurance policy worth $100,000. The life insurance named me as sole beneficiary. Lauren's eyebrows rose, but she said nothing. The standard distribution was straightforward. The house would be sold and proceeds divided equally. Savings would be divided equally after estate expenses. Personal property would be distributed according to an attached inventory. Then Patterson reached the provision that changed everything. "There is an additional clause regarding the distribution to Lauren Hartman," he said. His voice was careful, measured, as if he were handling explosives. "Lauren's share of all assets would be held in a trust managed by me for a period of 5 years. She could access funds for reasonable living expenses with my approval, but full distribution would occur only after she demonstrated financial stability and independence from third-party influence. If Lauren contested the will, her entire share would revert to me." Silence. 10 seconds of absolute silence. Then Lauren exploded. "What the hell is this?" She turned to me, her face twisted with fury. "You did this. You manipulated her. She was dying. She was on drugs. She did not know what she was signing." Derek reached over and placed a hand on Lauren's arm. The touch was light, but its effect was immediate. She went quiet. He leaned close and whispered something in her ear, and I watched my sister transform. The screaming stopped. Her shoulders relaxed. Her breathing slowed. When she looked at me again, the rage had been replaced by something colder, something patient, something that made me think of predators waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Whatever Derek told her, it was not comfort. It was a battle plan. Lauren stood, gathering her purse with deliberate calm. "I understand," she said. Her voice was eerily pleasant. "Mom was sick. She was confused. Melissa was here every day, filling her head with lies about me." She paused at the door. "This will not stand. I will contest it." Patterson reminded her of the no contest clause. Lauren smiled. A lawyer's smile. Derek's smile. "We will see about that." After they left, Patterson looked at me with exhausted eyes. "Your mother was very specific about this arrangement," he said. "She came to me 8 months ago, before the diagnosis got bad. She was lucid. She was determined." He paused, remembering. She said, and I quote, "Lauren is not capable of protecting herself from certain people. Melissa is the only one I trust." I asked if she had said who those certain people were. She did not name names, but she asked me a strange question before she left. He hesitated. She asked if there was any legal way to protect an inheritance from a beneficiary's spouse or future spouse. I told her the trust structure would help. She nodded and said, "Make it ironclad." My younger daughter has terrible taste in men. That afternoon I drove to my mother's house alone, the house where I had grown up, where I had learned to draw and dream and believe in myself. The house that still smelled like her perfume and her cooking and the lavender sachets she kept in every closet. I went to her bedroom, the desk drawer she had mentioned in hospice. Inside I found old photographs, receipts, a folder of tax documents, and one envelope sealed, with "Melissa, when you need it," written in her careful handwriting. I held that envelope for a long time. Part of me wanted to tear it open immediately, to finally understand what my mother had been trying to tell me, but she had said to wait until I needed it. She had been specific. Whatever was inside was meant for a moment that had not yet arrived. I put the letter back in the drawer, but as I did, I noticed something else. A receipt from a private investigator dated 6 months before her diagnosis. Subject: Derek Sullivan. Amount paid: $1,500. The report itself was missing. My heart began to pound. My mother had hired someone to investigate Derek. Before she got sick. Before any of this. She had known something was wrong, and she had tried to find proof. I searched the house for an hour. Filing cabinets, closets, the safe in the basement. Nothing. Then I noticed that the desk drawer had a false bottom. Underneath, I found 3 pages stapled together, with a sticky note in my mother's handwriting. "Show this to no one until necessary." I read the investigator's report by the light of my phone, afraid to turn on the lamps, afraid someone might see. Derek Sullivan was not just a con man with a few bad business deals. He had done this before, multiple times. He targeted women with family money, isolated them from relatives, then systematically drained their assets. His ex-wife in Texas had lost everything. The investor in Phoenix had declared bankruptcy. And now he had found Lauren. My mother knew. She knew everything. And she had tried to build a fortress around me with her will, knowing she would not live to see if it held. That night, I called my college roommate Rachel Chen. We had drifted apart after graduation, but she had become one of the most respected family law attorneys in Denver. She had actually been the one who recommended Patterson to my mother when she needed to update her estate documents. Rachel answered on the second ring. "Melissa, I heard about your mother. I am so sorry. I told her I needed help. I told her I needed discretion. I told her everything." We met at her office the next morning. I brought the will, the investigator's report, my spreadsheet of money given to Lauren over the years. Rachel listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and steepled her fingers. "Your mother was smart," she said. "This trust structure is solid. But Lauren can still contest. She can claim undue influence, lack of capacity. It will be expensive for her, and she will probably lose, but she can drag this out for years." "Does she have the money for that kind of fight?" "No," I said. "But Derek might, or he might convince her to find it somehow." Rachel nodded slowly. "Then we need to be prepared. Document everything from now on, every interaction, every request, every threat." She paused. "And Melissa, do not open that letter yet. If your mother said to wait until you need it, she had a reason. That letter might be your last line of defense." She walked me to the door and said something I did not understand at the time. "Your mother did not just write a will, Melissa. She built a trap. The trust, the conditions, the no contest clause. She was not just protecting your inheritance. She was forcing Lauren to make a choice. Accept the terms and get something, or fight and lose everything." Rachel's eyes met mine. "The question is whether Lauren is smart enough to see it, or whether Derek will convince her to walk right into it." 2 weeks after the will reading, I returned to my mother's house to begin cataloging items for the estate inventory. I walked through the rooms I knew so well, photographing furniture and artwork and the small objects that had defined my mother's life. When I reached the living room, I stopped. One of the walls was empty. My grandmother's watercolor of the Rocky Mountains, the painting she had created in 1963, the one that had hung in that exact spot for as long as I could remember, was gone. I searched the entire house. Nothing. I checked the inventory Patterson's office had created 2 weeks earlier. The painting was photographed, documented, present. Now it was gone. I checked the locks, no sign of break-in. But Lauren still had a key. My mother had given it to her years ago for emergencies. I called my sister. "The painting is missing. Grandma's Rocky Mountain watercolor." Long pause. "I do not know what you are talking about." "Lauren, that painting was on the wall 2 weeks ago." "Where is it?" Her voice turned cold. "Maybe Mom gave it to me before she died. Did you ever think of that? Not everything belongs to you, Melissa." The line went dead. I stood in my mother's living room, staring at the empty space on the wall, and I understood something that changed everything. Lauren was not going to contest the will in court. She was going to take what she wanted piece by piece, item by item, until there was nothing left to inherit. The war my mother tried to prevent had already begun. And I was losing before I even knew we were fighting. After I discovered the missing painting, I changed the locks on my mother's house. I documented every item in the estate with photographs and video. I hired a security company to install cameras at the front and back doors. And then I waited. For 3 months, nothing happened. Lauren did not call, Derek did not appear, no more items vanished from the house, no threatening letters arrived, no lawyers contacted me with demands. The silence should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like the moment before an earthquake, that strange stillness when even the birds stop singing. I tried to focus on work. The hospital renovation project was in full swing, demanding 70-hour weeks and constant problem-solving. I promoted Marcus Webb to Chief Financial Officer, a decision that would prove to be one of the smartest I ever made. The company was growing faster than I had ever imagined. New clients were calling, new opportunities were emerging. For the first time since my mother's diagnosis, I started thinking about the future. Maybe Lauren had accepted the situation. Maybe Derek had moved on to another target. Maybe the trust provisions in the will had scared them off. I allowed myself to breathe. I allowed myself to sleep through the night without checking my phone every few hours. I allowed myself to believe that the worst was over. That was my mistake. I forgot the most important rule about predators. They do not attack when you are watching. They wait until you look away. The call came on a Tuesday evening, 3 months after the painting disappeared. I was working late at the office, reviewing blueprints for a commercial renovation, when my phone lit up with Lauren's name. I almost did not answer. Every conversation with my sister ended the same way, with her asking for something and me feeling guilty for existing. But something made me pick up. Maybe curiosity, maybe hope, maybe the foolish belief that people can change. Lauren's voice was different. Soft. Broken. The voice of someone who had been crying for hours and had finally run out of tears. "Melissa, I know I do not deserve to call you." She paused, sniffling. "I have been doing a lot of thinking. About Mom. About us. About everything." I waited, saying nothing. "I think I have a problem. A real problem." Her voice cracked. "Derek and I have been fighting. He wants me to do things I do not want to do. Things that scare me." I felt my guard lowering despite myself. "What kind of things?" She did not answer directly. "I need help, Melissa. Real help this time. Not money for bills or rent or Derek's schemes. I want to go to rehab. I want to get clean. I want to start over." I closed my eyes. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap. But Lauren sounded genuinely scared. What if this was real? What if she was finally ready to change? What if I said no and something terrible happened? "There is a treatment center in Aspen," she continued. 60 days. It is supposed to be the best. It costs $35,000. I know that is a lot. I know I have no right to ask. But if I do not go now, I do not know what Derek will make me do. Her voice broke completely. "Please, Melissa, I am begging you, save me." She said, "Save me." Those 2 words broke through every wall I had built. I heard my mother's voice telling me that family takes care of family. I heard my own guilt whispering that maybe I had been too harsh, too protective of money instead of my sister. I heard Lauren crying, and my resolve crumbled. I agreed to pay, but with strict conditions. I would pay the facility directly, not give Lauren cash. I wanted weekly updates from the treatment center. She had to complete the full 60 days or repay the money. Lauren agreed to everything. "Of course, whatever you need." "I just want to get better." She gave me the name of the facility, Aspen Valley Recovery Center. She said she would check in on Friday. I will never forget what she said before hanging up. "Thank you, Melissa. You are saving my life." On Wednesday, I called Aspen Valley Recovery Center to arrange payment. The admissions coordinator was professional and kind, but when I asked about Lauren Hartman's application, there was a long pause. "I am sorry, but we have no record of anyone by that name inquiring about our program." I called Lauren immediately. "They do not have your application." She had an explanation ready. "I was going to apply after I knew you would pay. I did not want to waste their time if it was not going to happen." I insisted on making the reservation myself. I booked a room starting Friday, paid the $35,000 deposit with my credit card, and offered to drive Lauren to Aspen personally. "No," she said quickly. "Derek will take me. It is fine. I do not want to make a scene." Friday came. At 3 in the afternoon, I called the facility to confirm my sister had arrived. "Miss Hartman has not checked in yet." I called Lauren. No answer. I called Derek. Straight to voicemail. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, nothing. Saturday morning I called Aspen Valley again. The admissions coordinator sounded uncomfortable. "We received a cancellation request yesterday morning. The deposit was refunded to the card on file." I checked my credit card statement. No refund. I checked my email. There was a forwarded confirmation from Aspen Valley, but it had been sent to an address I did not recognize. Someone had accessed my email and redirected the refund to a different account. $35,000. Gone. Not to a treatment center. Not to help my sister recover. The money had been stolen by someone who knew my passwords, my financial information, my trust. I sat at my desk and felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not sadness. Something colder. Something that had been asleep for years was finally waking up. Monday morning, Marcus Webb appeared at my office door. He was 53 years old, a former forensic accountant who had left corporate life to work somewhere that mattered. He had been with Hartman Design Studio since year 2, and he noticed everything. "We need to talk," he said, closing the door behind him. "Something is wrong with the system." He placed a printed report on my desk. 47 failed login attempts to our financial system over the past 2 weeks, all using your personal email as the username. The IP address traces to a residential location in Aurora. My stomach dropped. Aurora was where Lauren and Derek lived. "Someone has been trying to access our bank accounts," Marcus continued. "They know your email but not your password. If they had gotten in, they could have transferred funds, altered records, destroyed everything we have built." I stared at the report. The attempts had stopped 3 days ago, right before Lauren's rehab call. "This was not random," Marcus said. "Someone is probing for weaknesses, testing what they can take. And the timing, right before your sister asked for money, is not a coincidence." I told Marcus everything: the will, the missing painting, the fake rehab, the email hack. It was the first time I had told anyone at work about my family situation. He listened without judgment, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When I finished, he leaned forward with the expression of a man who had seen financial crimes before. "Melissa, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Is there any chance your sister or her boyfriend could have physical access to your computer? Your phone? Your apartment?" I thought about the spare key I had given Lauren 2 years ago when I traveled for a conference. The key I had never asked her to return. "Yes," I said, "there is." That afternoon I changed every password I had. I enabled 2-factor authentication on every account. I changed the locks on my apartment. And I called Rachel Chen. "You need more than security updates," Rachel said. "You need information. Your mother hired a private investigator before she died. That report gave you a glimpse, but it is 2 years old. You need to know what Derek has been doing since." She recommended an investigator named Samuel Torres, former FBI, now private practice. His office was in a nondescript building downtown, the kind of place you could walk past 1,000 times without noticing. He was 62 years old with a gray beard and eyes that seemed to see through walls. I brought him everything: the old investigator's report, the financial records, the login attempts, the rehab scam. He reviewed it all without expression, occasionally making notes in a leather-bound notebook. 2 weeks later, he called me back to his office. The report he handed me was 15 pages long, single-spaced. Derek Sullivan's real history was worse than I had imagined. 4 civil lawsuits in 3 states: Arizona, Texas, Nevada. 1 suspended sentence for wire fraud in Texas, first offense, plea deal. His ex-wife Sarah Mitchell had filed for divorce citing financial abuse and deception. A clear pattern emerged from the documents. He targeted women with family wealth. He isolated them from relatives. He drained their resources systematically. And he had no legitimate income source identified in 18 months. But the last page was what stopped my heart. Torres had created a timeline. Derek Sullivan met Lauren Hartman at Black Hawk Casino 14 months ago. 1 month later, he moved into her apartment. 2 months after that, the first request for money came to me. 3 months after that, my mother hired her own investigator. Torres had highlighted one sentence: Subject appears to select targets based on family financial profiles researched prior to initial contact. Derek had not stumbled upon my sister by accident. He had hunted her, and through her he was hunting me. Torres had obtained additional evidence during his investigation. Security footage from Black Hawk Casino, from the night Lauren and Derek supposedly met by chance. The footage showed Derek arriving at the casino alone, walking directly to the blackjack tables. But he did not gamble, he watched. For 45 minutes he observed the room, his eyes scanning the players like a hawk searching for prey. When he finally approached Lauren, she had been losing badly for hours. He already knew her name. Torres dug deeper. 3 weeks before that night, someone had searched public records for Eleanor Hartman's property holdings. The search originated from a Phoenix IP address, Derek's previous residence. He had researched my family before he ever set foot in that casino. He knew about my mother's house, its value. He found my mother's daughters through property records. He discovered Lauren had a gambling problem through social media posts she later deleted. He knew exactly where to find her and exactly what to say. I watched that footage 3 times. The way Derek circled Lauren like a shark sensing blood in the water. The way he waited until she was emotionally vulnerable, down $2,000 and drinking too much. The way he offered to buy her a drink with a smile that now looked less like charm and more like a trap snapping shut. My sister did not find a boyfriend. She was recruited by a predator. And I had spent 2 years blaming her for her own victimization, when the truth was more complicated and more terrifying. 1 week after receiving Torres's report, an email arrived from the law offices of Victor Reyes and Associates. The subject line read, "Notice of intent to contest estate of Eleanor Hartman." Lauren was formally contesting our mother's will. The grounds cited were undue influence, lack of testamentary capacity, and fraud. The document claimed that Eleanor Hartman had been manipulated by her elder daughter during a period of mental incapacity caused by terminal illness. It demanded immediate removal of all trust restrictions and equal distribution of estate assets. If I did not comply within 30 days, Lauren would file suit. The letter mentioned additional evidence of my alleged financial manipulation of our mother. Victor Reyes was known as the most aggressive estate litigation attorney in Colorado. His fees started at $500 per hour. Someone was paying for this fight, someone who expected a big payout. I forwarded the email to Rachel Chen with a single sentence. "They just declared war. Tell me how to win." I sat in my office, the investigator's report on one side of my desk and the lawsuit thread on the other, and I realized something that changed everything. My mother had not just written a will. She had drawn a line in the sand and dared Lauren to cross it. Now Lauren had crossed it. And buried somewhere in Torres's 15 pages was the ammunition I needed to end this, not by running away, not by paying them off, but by letting them destroy themselves. I just had to figure out how. Victor Reyes did not wait 30 days. He filed the lawsuit in 11. I received the official court summons on a Wednesday morning, hand-delivered to my office by a process server who looked almost apologetic. "Sorry, ma'am," he said as he handed me the envelope. "Just doing my job." I wanted to tell him that everyone involved in what was about to happen would probably say the same thing. The lawsuit was 43 pages of lies dressed in legal language. Case filed in Denver District Court. Plaintiff Lauren Hartman. Defendant Melissa Hartman. Individually and as trustee of the Eleanor Hartman estate. Claims for undue influence, lack of testamentary capacity, constructive fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. Relief sought included removal of all trust restrictions, equal distribution of estate assets, and compensatory damages. I read the specific allegations 3 times, each time finding new distortions of reality. According to the complaint, I had isolated our mother during her final months. I had suggested the trust provisions while Eleanor was mentally incapacitated by medication. I had mismanaged estate assets for personal benefit. I had refused reasonable requests for Lauren's rightful inheritance share. The document painted me as a calculating manipulator who had preyed on a dying woman. Lauren was portrayed as a concerned daughter denied her birthright by a greedy sister. There was no mention of the gambling, no mention of the debts, no mention of the missing painting, no mention of the $35,000 rehab scam. Page 7 contained a paragraph that made me stop breathing. Defendant Melissa Hartman maintained exclusive control over Eleanor Hartman's medical decisions, visitors, and communications during her final weeks, systematically preventing plaintiff from meaningful contact with her dying mother. I had begged Lauren to visit more. I had called her every time Mom asked for her. And now those unanswered calls were being rewritten as my fault. That afternoon, I brought the complaint to Rachel Chen's office. She read it slowly, making notes in the margins with a red pen. Her face remained neutral, but her pen moved faster and faster as she progressed through the pages. "This is aggressive but not surprising," she said when she finished. "Reyes is known for shock and awe tactics. He overwhelms defendants with accusations, hoping they will settle just to make the noise stop." She walked me through the legal landscape. The undue influence claim was their strongest argument because it was difficult to disprove a negative. How do you prove you did not manipulate someone? But the lack of capacity claim was weaker. My mother had signed the will 8 months before she died, when she was lucid and determined. Attorney Patterson could testify to her mental state. We had medical records from her oncologist confirming she understood her decisions. "Here is what you need to understand," Rachel said, leaning forward. "They do not expect to win this in court. Litigation like this costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. It can take 2 to 3 years. They are betting you will settle to make it go away." She explained the economics. Victor Reyes was probably working on contingency, meaning he got a percentage of whatever Lauren received. That meant someone had convinced him the payout would be worth his time. Someone had done the math on my company, my assets, my mother's estate, and decided the numbers justified the gamble. Defense costs could run between $150,000 and $300,000. Even if I won, I would lose years of my life and a fortune in legal fees. Meanwhile, the estate would sit frozen. The house could not be sold. Nothing could move forward. I would be trapped in legal limbo while they bled me dry. "So the question is," Rachel said, "do you want to fight, or do you want to negotiate? What would negotiating look like? You give Lauren some portion of the inheritance without the trust restrictions, maybe 60-40, maybe 70-30. She goes away." I thought about my mother's face in the hospice, the urgency in her grip when she made me promise to protect what mattered. "And if I fight?" Rachel smiled, not a warm smile. The smile of someone who had played this game before and won. "Then we need to make this lawsuit so dangerous for them that they are the ones who want to settle." She leaned closer. "We let them think they are winning. We let them get confident. And while they are busy celebrating, we document every single illegal thing they do. Because people like Derek Sullivan cannot help themselves. Give them enough rope and they will hang themselves." The legal proceedings began with what lawyers call the discovery phase. Both sides exchanged requests for documents and information. I had to produce financial records, communications with my mother, medical authorizations. Lauren had to produce evidence supporting her claims, communications about the estate, her own financial records. I provided everything Patterson's office had: medical records showing Eleanor's lucidity when the will was signed, correspondence showing my attempts to include Lauren in our mother's care, the unanswered calls, the missed visits. Bank statements proving my management of the estate had been transparent and appropriate. Lauren provided almost nothing. Vague references to witnesses who would testify to Eleanor's confusion. No documentary evidence of undue influence. Financial records that were suspiciously incomplete, with large gaps where casino losses and Derek's failed investments would have appeared. The depositions went badly for their side. Attorney Patterson testified that Eleanor Hartman was lucid, determined, and specific about her wishes. The hospice nurse confirmed that I visited daily, while Lauren visited rarely. The attending physician confirmed that Eleanor understood her decisions and was not impaired when she signed the will. After the physician's deposition, Victor Reyes approached me in the hallway outside the conference room. His smile was professional, but something in his eyes had changed. "Miss Hartman, I want you to know this is not personal. I am just representing my client's interests." He handed me his business card. "If you ever want to discuss a resolution, call me directly. Sometimes these things are better handled without all the formality." I took his card and said nothing. But I noticed his hand was shaking. Something had changed. He was not confident anymore. He was worried. The evidence was not supporting his case, and the depositions were making his client look like exactly what she was: a liar. While the lawsuit proceeded through the courts, Rachel advised me to increase security at my mother's house, not just to protect the remaining assets, but to gather evidence of any ongoing theft. "If they are stealing from the estate, we need proof," she said. "Proof changes everything. Proof turns a civil dispute into a criminal matter. Proof gives us leverage they cannot counter." I hired a security company Torres recommended. They installed cameras throughout the house, exterior and interior. The cameras were motion-activated, high-definition, with cloud storage that could not be tampered with. They were disguised as smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms. No one would know they were there. Rachel reviewed the setup carefully. Colorado is a one-party consent state for audio recording, but I was not a party to conversations happening in my mother's house when I was not there. So we configured the cameras for video only. No audio capture. It was legal. It was discreet. It was a trap. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. The cameras captured raccoons in the backyard, a stray cat on the porch, the lawn service mowing the grass. I started to wonder if I was being paranoid, if Lauren and Derek had moved on to other schemes, if the lawsuit was their only play. Then, at 2:47 on a Thursday morning, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the security app and watched in real time as Derek's BMW pulled onto the side street behind my mother's house. The headlights went dark. 2 figures emerged from the car, Lauren at the back door with a key I had thought I had deactivated. The locksmith must have given her a copy before changing the locks. They entered the house, flashlights scanning the darkness. I watched my sister walk through our mother's home at 3 in the morning, opening drawers, checking closets, moving from room to room like she was shopping at a store where everything was free. Derek followed behind her with a large duffel bag. They were not looking for documents or sentimental items. They were loading up anything valuable they could carry. The cameras captured 47 minutes of footage across 6 rooms. Lauren and Derek moved systematically through the house, taking inventory like professional burglars. They took 2 more of grandmother's watercolor paintings. They took the silver tea service that had belonged to my great-grandmother. They took a collection of first-edition books my father had spent decades acquiring. But the moment that nearly broke me was when Lauren entered our mother's bedroom. She went straight to the closet, pushed aside the clothes our mother would never wear again, and found the small fireproof safe Eleanor had kept hidden behind her winter coats. Lauren knew the combination. Our grandmother's birthday, a number we had both memorized as children. She opened the safe and removed everything inside. Our parents' marriage certificate, my birth certificate, the deed to the house, stock certificates worth approximately $40,000, and the Patek Philippe watch I thought had been stolen months earlier. The watch had been in the safe all along. Our mother must have hidden it there after discovering Lauren's earlier theft attempts. Now Lauren held it up to the flashlight, examining it like a jeweler appraising a piece. She smiled. Derek took a photograph of her wearing it. When they finished, the duffel bag was full. Derek carried it out the back door while Lauren paused at the threshold. She looked around the kitchen one last time. The kitchen where we had learned to cook together as children, where our mother had taught us to balance a checkbook and believe in ourselves. Lauren's lips moved. The cameras had no audio, but I could read what she said. She will never know. I saved the footage to 3 separate locations: cloud storage, external hard drive, a flash drive that I gave to Rachel the next morning. Then I did the hardest thing I had ever done in my life. Nothing. I went back to bed. I went to work the next day. I smiled when Lauren called me that afternoon to ask, sweetly, if I had reconsidered settling the lawsuit. I am thinking about it, I told her. These things take time. And all the while, I was building a case that would destroy her. 2 weeks later, they came back. Same time, around 3 a.m, same method, back door, flashlights, duffel bag. But this time, they brought a rental van. They took the dining room set. Antique mahogany, worth approximately $15,000. They had to make 3 trips to load it. They took Eleanor's collection of vintage cameras, a hobby she had pursued for 40 years. They took boxes of family photographs, pictures of Lauren and me as children, our parents' wedding photos. 3 generations of Hartmans documented in those boxes. Lauren took them all. I could not understand at first why she would want the photographs. They had no monetary value. You could not sell them or pawn them. Rachel explained it later. Leverage. She can claim you are hiding family property. Or she can threaten to destroy them if you do not settle. Or she just wants to hurt you. Sometimes cruelty is its own reward. The rental van's license plate was clearly visible on the security footage. Torres traced it within hours. Rented from a company in Aurora. Rented by Lauren Hartman. Paid with a credit card in her name. A paper trail a mile wide. Left by people who believed they would never be caught. After the second theft, Rachel called an emergency meeting. Her office was quiet, the city lights of Denver glittering through the windows behind her. She spread the evidence across her conference table like a general planning a battle. They have taken enough, she said. We have footage. We have the rental records. We have the credit card trail. We could go to the police right now and have them arrested for felony theft. I waited. I knew there was more. But I want to offer you another option. A better option. She slid a document across the table. Let me show you how we end this permanently. Her plan was elegant and ruthless. We would not report the thefts yet. Instead, we would use the evidence as leverage, but not the way Lauren expected. Derek thinks he is running a con on you, Rachel explained. Let him think it is working. We are going to restructure your company and your assets so that even if Lauren wins the lawsuit, she gets nothing of real value. And then we are going to offer them exactly what they want and watch them incriminate themselves taking it. She outlined the legal architecture. Hartman Design Studio would be restructured into a new entity. My personal assets would be placed in an irrevocable trust. The estate assets would be isolated from the company. Lauren could win the lawsuit and still walk away with nothing but empty paper. The real trap was more subtle. We are going to let Derek think he can take over your company, Rachel said. We will create documents that look like what he wants. He will sign them thinking he is winning, and those signatures will be his confession. I looked at the surveillance footage one more time, Lauren laughing while wearing our mother's watch, Derek photographing her like she was a trophy he had won. Do it, I said, whatever it takes. Rachel nodded and picked up her phone. I will call Marcus. We need to start the restructuring tonight. By the time they realize what is happening, it will already be too late. I walked to the window and looked out at the Denver skyline, thinking about everything my mother had built, everything I had built, and the sister who wanted to burn it all down. She thought she was hunting me. She had no idea she was walking into a trap that our mother had started building years ago, and I was about to finish it. Rachel called it strategic surrender. I called it the hardest acting job of my life. For the next 4 months, I became someone I barely recognized. A woman crumbling under pressure. A woman desperate to make the lawsuit disappear. A woman willing to negotiate away everything she had built just to find peace. Every phone call, every meeting, every interaction was a performance designed to make Derek Sullivan believe he had already won. The transformation started with small changes. I wore less makeup to meetings. I let my hair look slightly disheveled. I arrived 5 minutes late instead of 5 minutes early, apologizing profusely for delays that did not exist. I let my voice crack when discussing the lawsuit. I sighed heavily, rubbed my temples, appeared distracted and overwhelmed. The phone calls with Lauren became my most demanding performances. I initiated contact for the first time in months, calling her on a Tuesday evening with carefully rehearsed hesitation in my voice. "Lauren, I have been thinking, maybe we should talk." Silence on the other end, then suspicion. "About what?" "This lawsuit is destroying me. I cannot sleep. I cannot focus on work." My voice trembled perfectly. What would it take to make this go away? I could hear her interest sharpen. Derek's coaching had prepared her for this moment. She had been waiting for me to break. Within days, Derek started joining our calls. "Just to help mediate," he said. His tone was sympathetic, understanding, dripping with false concern. "Melissa, we never wanted it to come to this. Lauren just wants what is fair. Maybe if we could find a middle ground, everyone could move forward." His kindness made my skin crawl, but I played my part. I thanked him for his understanding. I apologized for being difficult. I asked for his guidance on how to resolve this peacefully. I played the broken woman so well that sometimes I forgot I was acting. There were nights I would hang up the phone after talking to Lauren and have to remind myself that the desperation in my voice was a weapon, not a wound. The hardest part was not letting them see my hatred. The second hardest part was not laughing when Derek called me family. While I performed weakness for my sister and her boyfriend, Rachel and Marcus and I worked through the nights rebuilding everything behind the scenes. The corporate restructuring was complex but essential. Hartman Design Studio, the company I had built over 7 years, existed as a limited liability company with me as the sole owner. That structure was vulnerable. If Lauren won a judgment against me personally, she could potentially claim my ownership stake. We needed to make that impossible. On paper, we dissolved Hartman Design Studio LLC. In its place, we created a new entity called Rocky Mountain Architecture Partners LLC. I held 51%. Marcus held 49%. The partnership agreement contained provisions that would make any hostile takeover worthless. No partner could transfer shares without written consent of the other. Any attempt to seize shares through legal judgment would result in automatic buyout at book value, which meant pennies on the dollar compared to actual worth. The operating agreement explicitly superseded any court order regarding individual partner assets. Marcus had right of first refusal on any share sale. The genius of this structure was simple. Even if Lauren won the lawsuit, even if a court ordered me to give her my share of the company, she would receive worthless paper. Shares she could not sell, shares she could not control, shares that gave her no voice in how the company operated. The real value of everything I had built was protected behind walls she could not breach. Marcus signed the partnership agreement at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. When he put down the pen, he looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. "You know, when you hired me 6 years ago, you told me this company was your dream." He smiled slightly. "I did not realize until now that you would burn it to the ground before letting someone steal it." I shook his hand. "Not burn it. Rebuild it somewhere they cannot reach." My personal assets required different protection. Rachel set up an irrevocable trust, a legal structure that would remove everything I owned from my name while still allowing me to benefit from it. She served as trustee, with a professional trust company named as successor. I became a beneficiary of my own assets rather than their owner. It sounds strange, but the distinction was crucial. A beneficiary cannot have their interest seized to pay judgments. The trust, not me, owned everything. Into the trust went my apartment, paid off and worth $450,000, my investment accounts approximately $200,000, my vehicle, my personal property, everything of significant value, even my mother's letter, kept in a safe deposit box now owned by the trust. The protection was nearly absolute. An irrevocable trust is not part of the grantor's estate for lawsuit purposes. Lauren could not claim these assets even if she won a judgment of $10 million. The trust existed before the lawsuit was filed, so there could be no claim of fraudulent transfer. Everything was legitimate. Everything was legal. Everything was designed to leave my sister holding an empty bag. Rachel handed me a folder containing the documentation of my new financial life. "Congratulations," she said with a slight smile. "On paper, you are now worth approximately $12,000. Your apartment, your savings, your investments, all held by the Hartman Family Trust, of which you are merely a beneficiary. I laughed for the first time in months. So if Lauren wins everything I own, she gets what? Rachel's smile widened. A 6-year-old Honda Civic and whatever is in your checking account. The look on Derek's face will be worth every penny of my fee. 2 weeks before the scheduled signing, Marcus called me at 8 in the morning. His voice was tight with controlled anger. We have a problem, a big one. Westfield Development was one of the largest commercial developers in Colorado. They had approached Hartman Design Studio about a mixed-use project in the River North District. The contract was worth $3.2 million over 18 months. It would be the biggest project in our company's history. We had been negotiating for 4 months. Site visits, preliminary designs, budget proposals. The contract was nearly finalized, waiting only for board approval. Someone named Derek Sullivan called Westfield's CEO yesterday, Marcus said. He introduced himself as incoming partner at Hartman Design. He told Margaret Chen there would be management changes soon, and suggested they delay signing until the new leadership structure was in place. My blood went cold. He offered to meet with them personally, Marcus continued, to discuss the transition. I called Margaret Chen immediately. She was polite but concerned. Is there something we should know about your company, Miss Hartman? We do not do business with unstable organizations. Perhaps we should postpone until your internal matters are resolved. I explained that there was a family dispute being exploited by someone who had no connection to my company whatsoever.